Hi, I'm Redneck Computer Geek. I run this YouTube channel here, and I'm really honestly making this video not for my viewers, but yet for family members of my viewers. Perhaps you know somebody that's been talking with you, like my wife does, about what do I buy you for Christmas, and they have no idea. Or your mom, or your significant other, and that's what this video is for. So I figured I'd walk through and show a couple of different ideas anybody could buy for the average person who's working on lawn tractors, small automotive equipment, and just generally running any kind of garage that you have a bunch of metalworking or machinist type stuff. So up here I'd like to point out that anytime you can get brake cleaner, carburetor cleaner, different lubricants and stuff like that. A lot of people don't realize just how much an expense this is for the person working on your stuff. If you've ever asked anybody to do brakes for you, they've probably burnt up an $8 can. One thing I'll point out though, if you do buy them a case of brake cleaner, if there's somebody who does a lot of welding, make sure that they know the difference between non-chlorinated and chlorinated. Better yet, just don't buy chlorinated brake cleaner. If they need it, they'll buy it themselves. Another great thing, WD-40 and PB Blaster. There isn't a person who works on stuff that doesn't need those two. If we come over here, I get a lot of people will ask me about welding. Now, I myself, I have a Hobart 140. It's an amazing welder. It's the largest 110 welder that Hobart makes, but it's not what I started out with. Back when I was 13 years old, I managed to get one of these. Now, this is a Campbell stick welder. You can pick these up at your local Walmart, but the one thing that I'll recommend is don't use the Walmart electrodes. Hobart actually came out with a 6013 stick. It's a 1/16 stick, works amazing in these welders. I use this thing all the time in order to run around, do tack welds, be able to put little short beads and stuff. If you're fixing decks on mowers, if you need to go and weld up a bolt in order to extract it, if you need to do stuff like that, these little stick welders are amazing, and I recommend them all the time. They do come with a crummy little welding helmet thing that'll start you out, but next year you can buy them a welder's helmet. They start off about 45 bucks, and yet again, planning for the future. Now, if we come down through over in here, and thank my wife for all the filming. She's actually behind me trying to do all this. If you're one of my mud mower enthusiasts, parents, significant other, whatever type things, the winch is the biggest key to all mud mowers. At some point you will need one. This is an SL2000. Believe it or not, this entire little tiny winch will hang this whole entire mud mower, all 700 pounds, from a tree so that you can be able to change belts on the trail. You can be able to pull engines with that winch. It's amazing what you can do with one of these. They're on Amazon all the time for about 80 bucks on sale. Worth every single cent for whoever it is you're buying for. The next thing I'll show you is impact guns. Now, this is a Black & Decker Matrix. It actually comes with a drill and a small impact. And then this is actually my wife's Makita. I love this little thing, and I love the little Black & Decker. These are great for speeding up work, and they will save somebody an amazing amount of time. If all the person has is just hand wrenches and ratchets, these are an amazing thing that anybody would love. On that note, these are great, but they're only about 150 pounds. So at AutoZone, you can pick up a corded Great Neck impact. And it'll take full-size impact sockets. And for doing lug nuts, for doing any major work, these things are a lifesaver. And if you ever do any construction on your house and you need to put concrete bolts in, you'll need one of these. Behind me on the other side, I've got these two items. We've got a regular bench grinder here with 6-inch disc, and we also have this Wen belt sander. I actually did a full review video on this if you're interested in more on it. If you're doing blades, if you're sharpening your wife's kitchen set, if you are dealing with sharpening up files for wood carving, all of that. These are two tools that will save you an amazing amount of time in the shop. I always thought these were a gimmick. I never ever thought they were worth anything. I now use it on every single project, and I literally have a raft of sanding belts. But you would think this would be hundreds of dollars. It's actually only about $45 worth of belts. And I use it for just about everything. They're an amazing tool. Nobody ever thinks they need one until they have one, and it's something they'll use all the time. This was around $70. You can get into a full-size bench grinder for usually around $60 to $80. The really high-end ones are going to be like $160 into the $180 ballpark. But if all they're doing is just grinding up mower deck blades and stuff like that, the regular one will do fine. I'm going to cut the video here and shift where my wife is standing, and I'll show you the next couple of things. So I like tools that make things quicker without being cheap. And what I mean by that is this Ionova voltmeter. It's model number 3320, and it has a nifty feature that I've never seen in another voltmeter, and I use it all the time. And I bet you'll be able to see it even from the distance there. And what it is it's got a set of LEDs up here. And if the battery voltage is correct, it'll light up a green little LED. And if the battery voltage is slightly low, it lights up orange, or it lights up red in order to tell you you ain't going nowhere. And I love that. And the reason being is because this thing can be vibrating all over the place. I'll never be able to read it when it's like this, but I can see those LEDs even when it's vibrating. Saves an amazing amount of time when you're working on a running engine. And I've had so many people over the years have asked me what this is so that they can buy one. It's in a lot of my videos, so there you go. The next two items here are these battery packs have become really common all over the place. These booster battery packs, and they're amazing. I've got about 3 or 4 of them at this point, and this is a Chinese knockoff one that I ended up picking up for about 45 bucks a couple of years ago. And they'll boost anything from a small car to, I've boosted my plow truck with this, which has a big V8 engine, and they're amazing. You'll use them on lawn tractors, you'll use them on your own car, you can plug in and use accessories on them. If you go camping, you can plug in and use the USB charger. This thing will literally charge up your cell phone about like 10 to 15 times if you're out camping without flinching. They're awesome. Well worth the money. Make sure you get a full-size compatible one. Make sure it states that it's for a 5.0 or better engine, and read the reviews on it. You're going to spend a good solid 60 bucks for a decent one. If you're dealing with somebody who works on large pickup trucks, that's what they're going to need. That being said, the other thing here when it comes to batteries is the battery charger here. And this is not just a charger, it's also a booster box. And it's got a setting for 55 cranking amps. And that is a great thing because you can sit there without any battery in the vehicle whatsoever, and off of this booster box crank it over. So your lawn tractor, you can start without any battery in it. Most small cars, I can start without any battery in it. These are usually around $80 to $100. You want to make sure it has the large cranking amp capability. Otherwise, you're just buying a really big battery charger. You want the boost capability if you're going to buy one. They make a 150 cranking amp version that AutoZone sells right now, which is actually probably my next upgrade for this, and they're about $120. We're going to shift camera locations again. I'll show you 1 or 2 more things, and then we'll go to the toolbox. Alright, so a couple other ideas here. Big giant things like drill presses and stuff are not usually a great Christmas gift unless you outright got asked for them. But if they do have a drill press, one thing that I recommend is getting the DeWalt step down tips for cutting metal. These things are amazing. I love them. I use them all the time, but they would be nothing without this particular product. This is Tap Magic, and you can look it up on Amazon. It's about $9 for this itty bitty little can, but there is not a guy who doesn't do machinist work that won't sit there and think this is amazing to get in a stocking stuffer. Nobody ever buys a can of Tap Magic for the first time thinking that it's going to be a great thing, but once you start using it, you will never want to not have it. It's awesome stuff. I thought it was snake oil until I tried it. I now will not do any drilling without it. Another thing, if they're doing a lot of machining work and they're doing a lot of drilling out, tapping holes in order to do engine mounts on lawn tractors, things like that, are tapered bits. You can get them going from 1/4 inch to 1 1/4 inch to little teeny tiny Christmas tree ones to regular standard size ones that go from 1/4 inch to 3/4. And you don't have to buy the most expensive set in order to go and be useful. This particular set here was $25, and they're amazing for mounting up engines, doing all kinds of work, and they serve purposes everywhere. I help a lot of my wife's projects when it comes to drilling holes through plastic sides of pots and things like that. That's what they're perfect for. Little throw out there tool. You can get these Stanley tape measures, and tape measures are kind of one of those universal, you know, you've seen a million times things. But what's cool about this one is that it's magnetic. So, and it's quite strong. And it's amazingly great for when you're working by yourself on metal projects and you're measuring out frames, you're measuring out different pieces of metal to cut in and socket them and things like that. Great little product. I think it was about 25 bucks at my local hardware store, and most of them carry them around here now. Home Depot and Lowe's carries them, and I love it. It helps out a lot. Alright, so I'm sure that sitting there looking at this, that probably the first aspect is nobody needs 5 grinders. But the answer is yes. One of the things that I'll recommend any day of the year, if you want to get a gift for a guy who works on doing a lot of metal work, a lot of machining, a lot of automotive work, is a grinder. But there's a bunch of different types depending on what they're interested in and what they're doing. But the first thing I'll tell you is all of us use a ton of cutting discs. You can pick these up by a 10-pack at Harbor Freight for about $10. This is the perfect stocking stuffer for any guy who does a lot of metal work. Pick these up. They're guaranteed to put a smile. Now, different types. You've got press and holds. This is for somebody who's working on projects where they're sanding, they're buffing, they're doing a lot of woodwork sanding, they're doing a lot of metal sanding, things like that. If they're into that, you want to press and hold. This is another style of press and hold if you see this. Now this here, you're going to see trigger switch style. This is for if you're doing precise cuts. That's why it's got the thinner blade on it. And this particular trigger style you're going to see on higher end grinders. You're going to spend more in order to be able to get that style. And they're usually somewhere in the $80 to $100 mark for these grinders. The other thing about grinders is do not buy anything that is less than 6 amps. If it isn't 6 amps, it is not worth spending the money on. You will burn them out. Trust me. I'm on about my 10th grinder at this point. So with this style of trigger, it's got 2 reasons. The first is once you push it back, you can trigger it really quickly. And that's a lot like having this speed trigger. But the other thing is it's made extended, so it takes almost no effort to hold it down once you have it down. And so it acts a lot like one that you can click in. So if you need just a universal grinder for somebody who's getting their first grinder, you probably want to grab one that has this style of trigger. This one here is actually a Chicago Electric from Harbor Freight. They still make these. They're about 45 bucks. Alright, so I'm going to haul my wife over for one last little segment of video over at my toolbox, and she's going to bring her little step stool with her because we kind of have a height difference. We'll be all set.
Here. Don't make me fall.
Alright, so here we are at the toolbox area. We've got a regular toolbox and we've got the electrical work here. So what we'll start off with is the electrical side. There's a special place in whatever hell you believe in for the person who came up with these type. Don't ever buy these for anybody unless you don't like them, okay? Straight over there. Now, what you will find is you've got this type. Now, these are awesome. They come from AutoZone, and they're about 20 bucks. And what it is when you put the wire in and you pull it down, it clips onto the wire and it actually pulls the sheathing off of the wire and cleans it up for you. It also has a cutter and a small crimper down in the bottom of it. Now the problem is, these do great at stripping the wire, but the crimper tool in the bottom of them isn't so strong. That's why you need a pair of these. These are regular electric crimp tools, like the old timers used to use. You can pick these up for about 10 bucks at just about any cheap tool place. AutoZone carries them, O'Reilly's carries them, any place like that carries them. So, if you're going to get these, do them a favor and get these for being able to crimp on the ends. Just a little tip. Over here in the toolbox, one of the nifty little things is they're going to buy sockets that match to what it is they're doing. So don't bother buying socket sets, because half the time you're not going to buy the right thing and all that kind of jazz. But what you can do is you can buy things that help with their socket sets. Now these strips you can buy online. They're usually about 5 bucks a strip, somewhere around that. And the cool, awesome thing about these is that they won't come off. I can beat them, I can smack them around all over the place, but what's awesome is you push the little tab and it comes right off and locks them in. And I love these. They're amazing. The one thing about them though is that under consistent use they only last about 3 to 5 years. So I'm constantly having to buy new sets, and that's just one of those things. So every 3 to 5 years you might have something you can put under the tree. One of those gimmicky little things, yet again a stocking stuffer. These are called palm ratchets. And yet again, they're one of those things I always thought was an absolute gimmick. And I've got several of them now. And they're one of those tools that when you're in that tight little horrible spot that you can't reach and you can't get something in there, these are what end up making it there. And that one time that you use them, they're the most saving tool ever. You praise the person that bought these and absolutely love them. Usually you can pick them up at AutoZone. O'Reilly's usually carries them, and you'll see them at Tractor Supply also. But they're great little tools, great stocking stuffers, and just all around cool little nifty item. So there, I've given you a whole bunch of different ideas. I did, however, come up with one thing for the missus that needs to be on this video. Okay? And you'll like it too. These are infrared heaters. If you live in an area that's snow and cold and everything else, that's why this is over my black chair. It can be totally, it can be 20 degrees in the rest of this garage. Underneath this infrared heater, where this chair is, and about a 7 to 8 foot circle around it, will be 60, 70 degrees, and you will be sitting in a t-shirt, and you will forget that the whole rest of the garage is cold. This is where my wife sits, by the way. Have fun, guys. Hope I was helpful.